Shalom, shalom, family. Welcome once again to another Tanakh, another Torah review. My name is Zurishaddai. I'm one of the teachers of Congregation BINAH, CHOKMAH, located in the Red Hook section of Brooklyn, New York. Our address is 382 Hamilton Avenue in Brooklyn, New York. Thanking you all once again for tuning in. Thanking you all for tuning in to us and listening to us and thinking, that we are worthy enough to be listened to. First and foremost, I'd like to give glory to the supreme intellect of the universe, Yehudah, the God of our ancient forefathers, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, who all glory is due to. Him and him alone do we worship and do we praise, and I give glory to his high and holy name forever and ever. Hallelujah. Thanking the Creator once again for the conclusion of the CHOKMAH. And also thank you all that came out and joined us and enjoy yourselves with us during this blessed season. Also acknowledging the leadership of our congregation, even the leader of our congregation, Chief Prince Yediel Ben Yissaschar, praying that the Creator be with him, with his family and his household, and that the Creator will continue to bless him and keep him. At this moment, we will be going over a conclusion or a lesson on the conclusion of CHOKMAH, and that will be brought by none other than one of my teachers and one of my mentors, even Nasik, Zurishaddai Ben Yehudah. How are you, Nasik?
Great, Hashem. First of all, I'd like to give praises to the Supreme Intelligence of the universe, God of my forefathers, God of Abraham, God of Isaac, God of Jacob. And due respects to the platform on the D.C.B platform, the leadership, spiritual leader, Chief Prince Yediel Ben Yissaschar, to the host Chief Uziel, to the princes, chiefs, Rabbi, Maureen, Connie, brothers and sisters and visitors. I greet you in the time of forefathers, Shalom Aleichem, and a very early Shabbat Shalom. I'd like to also say Adonai Septai Di Takufi Yagi Tila Theaka, O Lord, down my lips, and my mouth should declare that praise. I'd like to begin talking about the conclusion, and this segment is going to be basically the conclusion of CHOKMAH. But one of the interesting things I like to always speak about, the Pesach holy day that came up, which is evolved into CHOKMAH. So sometimes you might hear people say, happy Pesach for the whole 7-day period. And, you might see people say, CHOKMAH. So, and I like to bring out a couple of things, before I go into the Haftarah. The Haftarah I'll be reading, I know most people, most Israelites around my circles read Akrimot yesterday as the regular Sidra. I'm not going to speak on that now. I might cut at it next week sometimes, but I'm going to be pretty much with the system that's going on more extensively. But normally you have the Haftarah that would normally be read in most synagogues yesterday was the book of Isaiah, 10th chapter, 32nd verse to the 12th and 6th. We know also that the 7th day, which was the conclusion of it, most synagogues read 2 Samuel's, the 22nd chapter of 2 Samuel's, first verse to the 51st verse, was pretty much reminiscence of the 18th Psalm. I'll be speaking, and also the people would have been reading the Song of Songs that particular day too, which is interesting because the 7th day of CHOKMAH, so the Song of Songs, you say, well, why would they choose that Megillah, which means that scroll, that particular writing, on that particular day, the 7th day? And they read the Psalm itself in the book of Samuel. So I'd just like to speak on that before I go any further, just in case I might forget it, is that the 7th day, and it's also at the same time addressing the question about what night we left Egypt. Well, we was rushed out to leave our houses, and Pharaoh called us for Moses and Aaron at night for us to leave that night. We didn't really leave Egypt for a while. even when we crossed the Yam Suf, we still was in the territory of Egypt, because we instead of we say cross, but we actually made a U-turn, and we still was on Egyptian territory. Well, you know, part of the territory of Egypt, which is brings out another, you know, courtesy, that when the Egyptians were washed ashore, where the Israelites could see them and everything, with their armor and everything, it's almost like an act of kindness, because they also escorted our father Jacob back to the Holy Land and let him be buried. Though he died there, let him be buried in the land, you know, that was promised to him and his forefathers. All right, so the Song of Songs, you know, you figure you got to ask several questions on dealing with the seventh day. Is why is it that they choose a song, which is a victory song? That's pretty much the 22nd chapter of 2 Samuel. And then they read the Song of Songs. Most people that follow a particular rabbinic tradition will read the whole book of a Song of Songs, which is the Song of Solomon. Where in some circles, they might read one chapter per year until they reach the end, and then they'll start over again, like that. Depends on the customs. But what is interesting is that that's when they sung the song at the sea. Moses broke out of the song, and also then Miriam led the women in song. What is interesting is that when you're packing up to go somewhere, what do you take in your luggage? Now, we read where they left with their dough on their, and their kneading troughs, on their dough on their back with their kneading troughs. That's what we read. And when the time they left. But when you're packing to go somewhere, what would you pack? Who would be thinking about packing timbrels? So that was something. So sometimes, when we look into the women's head, like a great foresight, that if we're going to worship, we're going to worship and celebrate and enjoy ourselves. And that is one of the things about worshiping the Creator, is that it's not just only saying the prayers, but also enjoying yourself in saying the prayers. And therefore your prayers is not so much a petition. When you come to worship, your prayers become more of praise. And then you get jubilant and try to bring your whole body within this praise. So that's why on the seventh day, when they went into the Yom Suf as slaves, they come out as truly a free people, which I already spoken on. When we also, I like to speak about why we talk so much about Passover as opposed to any other day we observe. Shabbat, it's mentioned a lot of times in scriptures about the Shabbat and the Shabbat of the Lord and Shabbatones, but it don't get the attention that Passover did. On Shabbat, we prepare for Shabbat every week, but no other day that we observe that's mentioned in the book of Leviticus that we prepare for more than Passover. Passover is what we prepare for, where we had to prepare well in advance. Even just the first Pesach, they had 4 days in advance. But yet, in the wilderness, for the Shabbat, we only had a day in advance, where you got a double portion of the manna on the sixth day, and you boil that what you're going to boil, seed that what you're going to seed that what you're going to seed, and bake that what you're going to bake, and prepare prior to the Shabbat. But yet, Passover, the first Seder, when we had the lamb at the 10th day of the month, we prepared greatly well in advance. Now, also, we work harder on that particular observance to be prepared to observe on that particular day than any other point in our whole year. And so when we look at it and we say, okay, and there's a lot of things to make you think about all that preparation that we do. And then you got to ask yourself, is it very comfortable eating a big meal late at night? Because that's where the Passover was in the first one. And that's the way it is for anyone that comes behind. That the Passover Seder, the meal that we have, is eaten at night. Where most times you try to eat a little early so you can let your food digest before you go to bed. Though they might say it's a night of watching, even if it's a night of watching, when you eat, just eat and feast and really feast and enjoy your feast, that is a hard time, you would think, to enjoy a feast at deep into the night. So those are some things to consider, that out of all the other times we eat during the daytime where we got energy to burn off this and burn off that. So imagine how many calories some people might have picked up during that particular time, even though we're eating unleavened bread, not the leavening bread and a lot of stuff we don't eat. Some people might have picked up a few ounces here and there. So this is something to consider about concerning the Passover. One more point before I go into the Haftarah. I mean, a couple more points I like to bring up before I go into the Haftarah itself, is that the Passover Haggadah, which is the telling of the story. That's something that's most people that might follow a particular order will say, okay, I'm going to follow a rabbinic approach, and I'm going to follow these particular prescribed order, which is like 15 steps within the observance of a Seder night if you follow a rabbinic order. Some might say 14, depends on how they count, but basically 15 steps in most Passover Haggadah. Now, when we look at those particular steps, what you do in this order and what you do in that order on the Passover Haggadah, what is interesting, it's not even so much, I mean, the telling story is definitely interesting, but what sometimes we don't think about as much. Now, outside of the Tanakh, the scriptures, being the most written book that's known to mankind, more copies are written about that than any other book on the planet, as far as I know. But what is interesting is that the Passover Haggadah is close, it might be the second most written book in any other book on the planet, because it's recorded that it's about 8,000. We ain't talking about second editions and first editions and third editions and all that. 8,000 varieties of Passover Haggadahs, the way you will observe Passover for that particular night. So imagine that. So, and it's printed, and you get those Haggadahs printed every single year. Even Maxwell House got in a Passover Haggadah. So you have a Passover Haggadah that's printed every year, just like you constantly have the Tanakh being printed every year. So no other book is being reprinted so often close to the scriptures as a Passover Haggadah. So I'm saying that to say that it might be worth looking into for those that might never really looked into it and be concentrating in those areas to see what is so important and what's so novel about it. And another thing I'd bring out in dealing with there was a brother who passed on Shalom, the late Rabbi Cadmiel. He had brought out in reference to the Passover thing. He wrote a book, and he called it, I believe if I got it correctly, Chag YAH, almost like the Chag YAH, almost like the song they sing in the Haggadah. But he called it, the feast of the Lord, the feast of Yah, so to speak. So, and it was written by the late Rabbi Camille. It was translated into, printed and translated into the Hebrew by the late Morey Tebach, who was an excellent Hebrew grammarian. I don't know if anybody still have that, but he was motivated in his life to write him one, and he called it the Feast of Yah. And that's from the late Rabbi Camille Ben Levi, Shalom Alai. So just for some Israelites that might be looking, into this, and just to see what he wrote and how he explained his things. I mean, you don't have to agree with everything he said, because I had the book many years ago, but I don't have it no longer in my possession. But I had it I was in the same spot where he was at. So I brought the book because he's a brother and he printed it up. And since he's a brother and he printed it up, it's worth me taking an interest in what he was interested in, because he was a brother and he was older than I am. And he was a dedicated brother. I'd like to also bring out that when we talk about counting the Omer, what's all this about the Omer? Before, I don't want to forget to answer some questions. I think believe one person asked on the chat, was corn, during Chag Matzah, and corn is, and rice is, it's not considered grain, and it's not look at the grain. And one brother said that we had spelt. Then spelt is one of the grains. I mentioned it. As I said, 5 grains. I mentioned barley. I mentioned wheat. I mentioned spelt. I mentioned rye, and I mentioned oats. So those are 5 grains that I mentioned in the last dissertation. So those are grains that could come in. And I also focused on saying leaven is not what you necessarily add. I know, even though you can add, make a dough, put it to the side, and it becomes leaven. But leaven is more accurately defined as what something become out those 5 grains. All right. So those are the issues there. And I think I addressed all the things that was in the chat. So now I wanted to make it clear, because I was discussing with one sister, and I said, "Oh, I hope I need to correct, make sure I made myself very clear when I mentioned about rice and beans and stuff of that nature for Chag Matzah." And I said, because I just left it like that, rice and beans and legumes, as they refer to it, was not a thing that become commons. We're talking about beans. Pretty much you get dry beans that's not processed, no canned beans. I ain't talking about the canned beans. I'm not talking about the enriched rice. I'm not talking about those type of things. Rice that's wild, nothing added to anything like that, that's okay. I just want to make it clear, because I don't think I know I didn't make it clear last time I spoke, that if you're getting some enriched rice or whatever these different types of rice, y'all know what's out there in the market. I'm talking about plain, pure rice, plain, dry beans, plain corn. Not so much the canned stuff, because we're in a fast food era, and especially a lot of people don't like to cook, and we microwave and like have stuff ready from yesterday, today. So I just want to make that clear. So since I know I didn't make it clear last time, and it was near the end of the week, so those that didn't know, I hope I didn't cause anybody to error by not specifying that it got to be plain rice. That's nothing added, no processed, no enriched rice or anything like that. And nothing in the can, such as beans in the can, the corn in the can, because you might know what kind of elements they might have in there to process it. But off the stalk, good. Beans off the dry, boom, good. So those are areas I wanted to make clear. So if some people didn't understand me, or I didn't make myself clear, I apologize for that. And and the reason I want to make sure, even though you're pretty much already in it, and there was still maybe a day or so left in the Chag Matzah when most people probably looked at it. Matter of fact, it was near the end. It was the 17th, I think, when Chief Uzziel's added. So I'm hoping nobody messed up before that, because in the book of Exodus, the 12th chapter, when it talks about anybody that eat leaven during those 7 days, they say to be cut off from Israel. So now when we talk about being cut off from Israel, that means that the Passover got something to do with us nationalistically. All right. And now so it didn't say you was cut off from God, but you cut off from the nation of Israel. And that's will imply who need to be cut off from the nation of Israel, who would be affected most by being cut off from the nation of Israel. That's those people who are identified as Israelites to be cut off during that particular time. So those are the elements I wanted to bring out in reference to that. Now, to count the Omer, the word Omer itself is actually the sheep of wheat, a measurement of is a measurement, and the measurement is roughly about 43 ounces of sheeps of wheat that they bring up, or barley. So, and this was like during the barley season that they bring that offering up, the barley harvest, because the barley actually ripens before the wheat harvest. The wheat harvest is more in full bloom, and at the zenith around 50 days from pretty much the barley 49 days later, should I say. Now let's deal with the counting or the Omer, because I said that it was a controversy between the Sadducees that they will count, and other splinter groups that they will count on a Sunday. Now this year, Shavuot will be on a Sunday, but that's not because we started counting, in that manner, like that. It just happened to, fall that way this particular year. But the count, when they talk about, and I mentioned about Makorat HaShabbat, which is in the book of Leviticus, the morrow after the Shabbat. And I'm just going to Leviticus right quick, just to read a couple of verses, not much, because the day's over, but I told you I want to bring certain things into conclusion. So in the 15th verse of the 23rd chapter of Leviticus, it says, and shall count unto you the morrow after the day of the rest, all right, from the day that you brought the sheaf of the waving, all right, the day that you brought the sheaf of the waving. The first day you can actually do major stuff is actually after the Holy Convocation. 7 weeks shall be complete. Even unto the morrow after the 7th week, you shall number 50 days, and you shall present a new meal offering unto the Lord. All right, that's from 23rd chapter of Leviticus unto the, and the 16th verse. All right, 15, 16 respectively. Now, I explained last time that in the book of Exodus that the word Shabbat meant rest. And I gave you the chapter last week, which was Exodus 30, first chapter, 16th verse, going into the 17th verse. But also in the book of Genesis, I like to deal with that because I neglected to give you that last week as well. In the book of Genesis, matter of fact, I need to go there just for a moment just to read it. And you could just check it out. Those that want to check it out in Hebrew later on. But I'm going to read it in English from the majority of the people. So Genesis, the 2nd chapter, and going in the first verse of the 2nd chapter. And the heavens and the earth were finished, and all the hosts of them. And on the 7th day, God finished his work which he had made. And he rested on the 7th day from all his work which he had made. All right. When it used that term, rested on the 7th day, it used the word Shabbat. That's the Hebrew word is used for Shabbat. So, and he Shabbat on that 7th day. That means that the word Shabbat not only means the day, but it also means the act at which you actually do. So it's not only the noun for the day, but it's also the act, of resting, reclining, being on strike. So when they talk about the morrow after, the Shabbat, and I gave you, I read in the book of Joshua, the morrow after the Pesach, which is Makorat Pesach. That's the only time you see the word Matzah used there and in the book of Leviticus. So, in reference to days, certain major days. So I brought out Genesis and I brought out Exodus. This is where Genesis, the first time you read about a Shabbat day, and also what you're supposed to do. You're actually supposed to rest. Just cease from your work. Cease from your work. Exodus, it tell you that it's not only a sign between us and God, because we testify when we observe Shabbat every week, that God is the creator of heaven and earth, and all that in them there is. All right, so, and that's our relationship to show that we related to the creator in our observance of Shabbat, and we grateful for that. So 2 or more establish a matter. So I gave 2 examples. One is the earliest, the first time the term is basically being used is in Genesis, and later on in the Exodus, which is not Moses' idea, but coming directly from God. So now our count will start the 2nd day, which will be the 16th of the month of Aviv. That's when we'll start our count. So now there's a lot of different variables of how you're supposed to count. But one rabbinic way of doing it, a traditional way, I should say, because some people might not like the word rabbinical, but when I say rabbinical, I don't necessarily mean in the sense that I'm trying to change y'all to say, oh, we're gonna do everything Talmudic or, according to the Mishnah or Shulchan rule or any other thing like that. When I'm saying, and sometimes I might say the sages, but that's basic. When I say the sages, come from people that actually try to observe this way of life. But when I say commentaries, and may not necessarily be people that's trying to observe this way of life, just people that have some insight to this way of life. So now the counting was determined that you're supposed to count not only each day, but you count weeks. And so you start off with, a day of Omer, 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. Then you get the 7th day, and then you change it over to 1 week. So then you count, how many weeks it is. Now, one of the areas that most people don't pay attention to is that normally the tradition that they draw from is that they do the count at night, sundown, because our days start at night. And since our days start at night, then we start our count at night. And so when sun go down and the evening come in, then you add another day. So in other words, somebody forgot, you try not to count, and they say a blessing for that. There's a lot of rules on that. I'm not going to go into that now in reference to about rules about when you say the blessing, you don't say the blessing and stuff like that, if you miss a count. But that's not my purpose here. This just the main purpose is that you counting, and the word Sefirah, which means counting, also means to shine. So our day start in the evening, in the morning being, evening in the morning is 1 day. So so when we go from evening to morning, we call about a day. We just start our days not 1 stroke past midnight, but when the sun goes down. Just like the Shabbat comes in, that when the sun go down Friday, then we count, counting as a Shabbat. All right, so our days is counted from sundown. So therefore, to get the count, you got all night to make the count, because you want to say a complete Omer and not part of an Omer. So if you only wait to the daytime to count, you're technically counting part of the day, but not the whole day. And it's a command that you're supposed to count. So if it's a command for you to count, then you should be, everybody would want to be in the grace of the Creator, would try their best to showed zeal and say, as soon as the sun go down, I'm going to say a blessing and I'm going to count the Omer because I'm anticipating for one particular great day. And when we get this 7 weeks, 0.9 Omers in 7 weeks, the 50th is really not a day that you count because you're in the 50th. So you're there already. So, you know, though some people might say, well, I count the 50th, but you really don't count the 50, count 49. Now, also, it represents for those that follow a more of a spiritual level of accounting. We got 7, I mentioned before, you had 7 faculties of understanding, you know, knowledge. Several, which is wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. Those basically are our intelligent levels. But then you have emotions, characters of, you know, your character and emotions. And there's 7 of them that they pretty much enumerate, you know, in our way of life commentaries, you know, which is Kesed, which is kindness, Gevurah, which is strength, Tefirah, which is harmony, or beauty, Nasik, perseverance, victory, Chod, humility, Yesod, foundation, and Malkut, kingship or royalty. When you're counting those different emotions and characters, since the first week was about Kesed, they add each one of those to couple with Kesed, and it'd be like Kesed and you know, you might go Kesed and Gevurah. So now, based on Kesed and Gevurah, kindness and strength, how do you, you know, pursue that in your character? So you're developing your character for that great day of when we met with the Creator, 50 days. So we just think mostly about the wave off in the week, but you're actually trying to focus on that great day when we stand before the Creator. So now, those are some of the things that I like to bring out. And I think I spoke long enough on that. So I'm just going straight to the book of Ezekiel, the 37th chapter, which normally was read in in some places in Israel, and mostly in Israel, when they only do, you know, 7 days. They do an extra day outside the land of Israel, which they add a day and stuff like that for the various reasons I explained in the past. So the 37th chapter of the book of Ezekiel, which is one of the most famous chapters that people tend to focus on in the book. Oh, one more thing I forgot to mention, when they read the Song of Songs on there, because, you know, they sung, you know, it's the first time you find the whole nation singing after the 7th day, they actually come through on Yom Su. So they had reason to give praise to the Creator. You didn't read where they had praise given to the Creator prior to that. And also that when we look at, you know, what happened to the Egyptians, and you say, well, why, you know, and why does the Passover and the saga so much important to our history? It's because we learn some things about our oppressor. And what we learn from our oppressor is this, that, you know, that particular Pharaoh, that the Creator promised the death of the firstborn, but he gave him all them other plagues in the front. 9 other plagues where he gave him the death of the firstborn, and Pharaoh being the firstborn. And the plagues itself, you know, people will say, and I want to address that now because they say God hardened Pharaoh's heart. He made it steadfast for him to do what he needed to do. What it is that each plague, he didn't want, the Creator didn't want Pharaoh and harden his heart. He didn't want Pharaoh to be afraid of the plagues. He wanted Pharaoh to acknowledge him and respect him. So each plague, Pharaoh, you know, it hurt him, yes. Did damage to him, yes. You know, made him feel uncomfortable in his people, yes. But the plagues was not what made Pharaoh let the people go. And even the death of the firstborn, people lose children. Everybody lose children. But what happens at the very end is that Pharaoh, being the firstborn, he recognized, now, God, these people is not going to look for God in that Passover story. God is sending for his people. And that's important to understand, that God, we didn't go looking for God. God went and sent for us. And that is important. And Pharaoh had to acknowledge that in the very end. So now I'll go in the book of Ezekiel, the 37th chapter, first verse. And it says, the hand of the Lord was upon me, and the Lord carried me out in his spirit and set me down in the midst of the valley, and it was full of bones. And he caused me to pass by them round about, and behold, there was very many in the open valley, and lo, they were very dry. All right, so now, Ezekiel, we know that he was also brought in from into captivity 10 years before the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem. And also he was amongst the captives, and he was a priest. and the trip for him wasn't pleasant. And then this trip, he has a vision. So he goes through a trance-like state. And as a priest, why would a priest be in a boneyard, a grave site? A priest not supposed to be in a boneyard, a grave site. A regular priest only go for a mother, father, or a sister that's close to him, dear to him. A high priest, which it wasn't, Ezekiel wasn't a high priest and stuff, was not supposed to go for anyone. So we have this great dilemma in reference to that. So but anyway, this is a vision that comes to Ezekiel himself in reference to being put in the valley of dry bones. Yeah. So when we look more, and it goes on to say, and he said unto me, Son of man, can these bones live? So this is one of the revelations in this vision, this trance state that Ezekiel had, that in this trance state that Ezekiel had, that he's in the valley of dry bones, and while being in this valley of dry bones, that he doesn't, he's put in a precarious situation, and he asked this question: can these bones live? Now God asked him, and he says, Son of man. And the answer is this. And I answer, O Lord God, thou knowest. All right, so now he avoided the question. And since he avoided the question, thou knowest, then if you know about the creation of heaven and earth, that thing's being brought in from nothing, and the Creator asks you a question, it's not for him to get any new information. It's for him, for you to bear testimony, because things look bad. Remember, I told you he was one of the captives on the way. Most people figured it was the end, a 70-year stretch. If you're talking about you going to jail for 70 years, even today, and even if you 15 years old, you said 70, am I going to make it to 70? Even if we get 5-year grace period, a good time, am I going to make it for 65 years? Or am I going to make it to 60 years? And I'm 15 years old. So, and what contrary to most people believe, people in ancient times, very few of them live past 60. Very few people in ancient times. We read in a book where people live 100 in this and 200 in that, whatever the case, and we read about Methuselah living to be 969. But those are exceptional people. Most people didn't live that long. So we will continue from the 4th verse of Ezekiel, the 37th chapter, and we're going to go all the way down to the 14th.
Verse 4. Hallelujah.
Yes. Hallelujah.
Then he said unto me, prophesy over these bones, and say unto them, O ye dry bones, hear the word of Yehovah. Thus saith Adonai Yehovah unto these bones, behold, I will cause breath to enter into you, and ye shall live.
Hold right there. What's important, I like to say, is that instead of addressing the question, I believe, well, I'm saying it from my perspective now, and I'm looking at his story. If I was asked that question, I said, it would be your will. I don't presume to know God's will. So you ask me this question, and I'm not going to doubt you. And I'm saying, if it be your will, all things are possible. There's nothing impossible. But he look at the bones, look at the condition, and we find out later on who the bones are. That's it. I got to give up on you. But sometimes people give up on you, and God didn't give up on you. And then that's what people don't see sometimes. But we're gonna pick it up from there, and it says what?
Verse
God
6.
prophesies. God says something, right? Yes.
Verse 6.
6. Yes.
And I will lay sinews upon you, and will bring up flesh upon you, and cover you with skin, and put breath in you, and ye shall live, and ye shall know that I am Yehovah.
So right there. Mm-hmm. All right. This is just the opposite of the Genesis story. When man is formed of the dust of the ground, and the way it is, that you when he says, I'll cover you with skin and put breath in you. But say, I will lay sinew upon you, and I will bring flesh upon you. That's just backwards. That's a reversal. Man, when it was created in Genesis, it's made and it's done a different way. And a baby is brought about a different way. So what is this saying? Showing you that in the realm of God, everything is possible, because this is not the normal way a human being be made. Maybe a Frankenstein monster, so to speak, but not a normal human being. But the Creator letting him know right then and there that, after he said, I put breath in you. We the only creatures that the Creator actually took a personal essence in and breathed it within us. Only creatures alive. Everybody else said, let the earth bring forth, blase is there. Let the water swarm, good. Let such happen, that's right. Let the trees come up. But if, speaking metaphorically, God had a hand and resuscitate and breathe within us, that's up close and personal. So now we're going to pick it up from there. Pick it up.
It reads, verse 7. So I prophesied as I was commanded, and as I prophesied, there was a noise. And behold, a commotion, and the bones came together, bone to its bone. And I beheld, and lo, there was sinews upon them, and flesh came up, and skin covered them above, but there was no breath in them.
Then okay, right then and there. All right. You didn't see no life force, no element. But when a people is beaten down, that's the reason the story is read. Some, in intermediate Shabbat days, during Chag Matzot, and because it gives hope. Because the children of Israel, when Pharaoh increased the workload on them, and said, "Look here, you gotta get your own straw and make brick, with your own straw." What it's telling is people didn't want to hear Moses speak about their liberation and emancipation. They didn't want to hear because it's a shortness of spirit. In other words, no breath in there. They wanted ruach, the shortness of the ruach, the spirit, way back in Exodus. So sometimes people could be beaten down so low that they can't see any hope in sight for themselves. And the prophet didn't even see any hope for them. So he prophesies, and almost like Moses getting ready to speak to the rock, He prophesies the bones that he don't believe, even in his vision. Now you're in a vision, and you're saying things ain't possible. And most of us, when we're dreaming, we wake up and say, I know this is a dream. I can make myself do this sometime in my dream. Sometimes you can take control of your dream and say, I'm gonna make myself do this or that. I'll make this happen in the dream. But Here it is, the prophet felt that powerless and see no hope for the people that he's told to prophesize to. And yet, mind you, he's going to captivity in Babylon as a prisoner. And one of the areas I like to focus on is that when they look like everything's okay, they have no breath in them. Pick it up from the 9.
Verse 9 reads, Then said he unto me, Prophesy unto the breath, prophesy, son of man, and say to the breath, Thus saith Adonai Yehudah, Come from the four winds, O breath, and breathe upon these slain that they may live.
Hold right there. Hold it. So that's how they wind up dead. That's how they wind up in that condition. That they were slaughtered. They they was out of it. They didn't just die of natural causes. They had a premature death. But that's something else to focus on. I pick it up from the 10th.
Verse 10 reads, So I prophesied as he commanded me, and the breath came into them, and they lived and stood up upon their feet, an exceeding great host. Then he said unto me, Son of man, these bones are the whole house of Israel. Behold, they say, Our bones are dried up, and our hope is lost. We are clean cut off. Therefore prophesy and say unto them, Thus saith Adonai Yehudah, Behold, I will open your graves and cause you to come up out of your graves, O my people, and I will bring you into the land of Israel. Hold right
there. That means these people outside the land. Now, I'm just going to share this commentary, rabbinic tradition. Some people say about, when they look at this here particular verses about the people that's being revived and the bones that they talk about, they look at the people of the tribe of Ephraim that left Egypt prematurely. And so, that's what one viewpoint is. I don't, hold to that viewpoint. I'm just sharing some of the things that I know people might be, referred to, as a viewpoint. But I don't hold to that particular viewpoint. But we know that the tribe of Ephraim, evidently, according to the Chronicles, was slain. A lot of them left out in Egypt early by Philistines and from a major town of Gath, where the champion Goliath is from. So, but they when they revive, now ain't that something? Our bones are dried up and our hope is lost, and we are clean cut off. Now, some people doubt their own potential. There's a story about Samson, and hopefully, it's fitting just to bring out a particular point. That Samson, his strength was in his hair, but his eyes kept him messing up. He's seen this beauty over here, seen that beauty over there. So he followed, what he saw, his eyes, which work on the lustful heart, but his hair was his strength. But one of the great things about that is that when his hair was cut off, he lost his strength. When his eyes are plucked out, he lost his lust and desire. The eyes became a weakness for him. But when his hair grew back, his strength came back. So sometimes, God got to cut out the weakness in our lives in order for us to stay strong. So the strength can come back, but the weakness got to be cut out. And the eyes are never going to grow back, but the hair was growing back. And Samson did more once his hair grew back without sight than he ever did with sight. So that's some of the lessons we can learn from that. These people here, they already was bones. They already was dead. They already was lifeless. And then after, they can't see that God already worked with them. God already brought them from a spot. And then they say they cut off. How you cut off when you just given some kind of life? But read on, what else happened? Next couple
verse
verses.
13, it reads, And ye shall know that I am Yehudah when I have opened your graves and caused you to come up out of your graves, O my people. and I will put my spirit in you, and ye shall live, and I will place you in your own land, and ye shall know that I am Yehovah, and ye shall know that I, Yehovah, have spoken and performed it, saith Yehovah. Hallelujah.
All right. Hallelujah. So that is pretty much ends that particular Haftarah. And one of the most important things is that sometimes you could be so low, you gotta look up to see down. That's how low you could be sometimes. And if it's such a thing, and look up to see down. But when you trust in the Most High, everything is possible. And only thing the Creator can't do is fail. That's the only thing he can't do is fail. And also, as and some people, like I said, read Isaiah, which is talk about the great Messianic period, because a lot of times we look for and we talk about Passover, redemption and freedom, but freedom comes a responsibility to be free. And so one of the things, even in the commandments at the Decalogue and Matzah Torah, the Creator let us know that I brought you out the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. And I was, therefore you owe me. And so in other words, but to be free means that you got to have a purpose in life. If you have no purpose in life, you're not really free. You're moving like a pendulum, with every wind, swaying with every wind. To be free means that you got to exercise some kind of mobility. So as we become the Omer, as we approach, that particular time of Shavuot, and like I said, we normally never say 50, we'll count the 49, 7 weeks, because the word Shavuot itself means weeks as well as oaths and promises, and 7. So with that, I hope you got something out what I said, and any mistakes from my own.
Yeah. Hallelujah. Torah Nasik. Thank you for your efforts and your dedication. May the Most High God bless you and keep you.
Amen. All of us. Shalom.
Shalom. got to praise Yahweh. Everybody got to praise Yahweh. Everybody got to praise Yahweh. Hallelujah. 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 Let's go. We got guns for peace, guns for wars, but you never heard guns like this before. Come on. All right. Tired? Oh. You're too young to have on riders. Guns for peace, guns for wars, but you never heard guns like these before. go on all bass. 1, 2, 3, 4. Brothers, y'all ready? Brothers, y'all ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. Everybody, 1, 2, 3.